Welcome as we meet the stars of the Rugby League World Cup. I'm Pat Molihan. Joining me is James Graham. And James, you get itchy feet at this time of year.
Yeah, look, I'm so excited for this World Cup tournament. Obviously, it's 12 months delayed, but delighted to have it.
Mate, everyone wants to be involved. And joining us is one man who, it's quite a shock. He's the Lebanon coach, former Wallabies, and now Argentina head coach, Michael Cheika.
Thanks, lads. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us, Michael. And I'll start with the first obvious question is why? Why are you doing this?
Well, look, I've always been a huge rugby league fan. I don't think that's any secret. You know, brought up playing, in junior leagues with the Roosters in the junior leagues through my school when I played rugby league there. And then I went off to rugby union, but I've always had the passion for league. And when this opportunity came up after a bit of time with the Roosters in 2019 and 2020 and 21, and then, of course, being Lebanon, which is my heritage, was an offer too good to refuse, to be honest.
Michael, a lot of people around the world are one or the other, union or league, and in fact, they are generally anti the other code. But that's not the case with a lot of Australian coaches and players.
No, I think we're all brought up, you know better than anyone there, Pat, and you're all brought up playing both, You know what I mean? You're brought up loving both. You've got your teams in both codes, and support. And I think every Aussie kid sort of grows up that way, at least on the eastern seaboard where those games are really popular. So I don't think it's really a choice between one or the other. I love both games, and I can see, obviously, as a coach in both games, you can see the crossover really clearly when that time comes. And the time I had with the Roosters, I think, really reaffirmed for me how interesting a game rugby league is when it comes to the planning and the strategising inside of the game, which really interests me. So, no, mate, I love them both, and I'm going to get the opportunity this year to swing between the both, sometimes even in the same week, hopefully. So we'll see how it goes.
Speaking of the Roosters, you're leaning very heavily on them with your staff.
Matt King, obviously, he's going to be running the show. He's been an excellent, asset to the Roosters over many years in their charges, and even with the Rabbitohs before that, when they went into the grand final. But he's growing as a coach every year, and his knowledge on both sides of the ball. He's worked on both sides of the ball with the Roosters, which gives him an in-depth knowledge of both attack and defence. And I think coming into with a team like Lebanon, where a lot of the boys were just going to get them together for the first time in the weeks leading up to the tournament, that intertwining of the two parts of the game and the transitions, and then how we'll work, what we'll do traditionally and what we might do a little bit different, will be really important. We've also had Jake Friend helping us out from Roosters as well, as he launches his coaching career, and he looks like he's going to be a fine coach in the future as well. So, yes, there's a bit of a Roosters lean, but we've got to be careful because Robbo is directing the rugby at Rugby League for the French this year. So hopefully we get to cross paths, because that'll be a bit further down in the competition.
Most people have one. You have 1 million jobs. Can you explain to people watching how exactly the cards fell from rugby in Japan to rugby league with Lebanon, and now as well to Argentina?
Started off with the opportunity in Japan. I wasn't that, I never really thought about Japan too much, but I wanted to explore the idea of the role as a director, like just to not play an on-field role as much, more an off-field role, and how that would play out. Also a very different circumstance I'm used to. Our team over there is a team that's always fighting to survive at this stage in the top division, and we were able to last year against the odds. So it's a different challenge altogether. And then the Lebanese team came up as well, probably a little bit before, and then with the deferral of the 21 World Cup to 22, sort of became more realistic for us also, because we had more time to align up with the players and get to know the guys, have a few practice games, etc. And then I actually moved over to Europe with the family, thinking I could manage these two things remotely from there, and then the opportunity with Argentina came up, which obviously with the Rugby Union World Cup in 23 was too good an offer to let go. I know those guys. I've got a close association with Argentina for many years, and so I really, coaching at that level, it's like it's an addiction. The thrill of going out at test matches, the anthems, everything's on the line. It's like a grand final every week. It's very very addictive, so I sort of really couldn't say no. So they've all sort of piled onto each other, but Argentina were really accepting, and they really appreciate the fact that I have my commitment with the Lebanese teams. They're going to cross at some stage over this next couple of months, and I am actually looking forward to those periods, because the ability to transition between the two in short spaces of time is going to be a real test, and that's something I like.
You're so keen to do this that you're going to miss test matches with Argentina. That would be unheard of in a lot of sports.
Well, I've made my commitment to the Cedars, and I really want to do it. I think if there's now a chance to give something back to my country of heritage, in my area of expertise, I suppose, being sport, it's a rarity, and there's a lot going on over there in Lebanon, and a lot of things that aren't great for the people there. And I think the opportunity for them, even for a game that they don't really know that well, there's a small rugby league competition there, I think 4-team competition. So it's not like it's a national sport or anything like that, but to them to get a chance to see the crest play on the national stage, their national team play, get behind the team, even though they may not know the sport, and switch off from the problems they might have on a day-to-day basis, so they can enjoy sport for what it is. That was something I really wanted to do, and it's important to me.
And a lot of people wouldn't know, it's so personal that there's actually a relative of yours in the running to be in the team.
There is. Well, I don't think you'd be in the running. I think it'd be well and truly there in Adam Dewey. Yeah, we've been related through my mum's side, and I always had the exclusive role as the footballer in the family, but he's come and stolen all the thunder now and become a top line player in his own right, launched from the last World Cup really. And I think seeing some of the young players that are coming up now with Lebanese heritage, the 2017 World Cup really set them alight to say, I want to play for Lebanon. I think one of our goals between this World Cup and then the next World Cup in 25 will be to get more regular test matches for Lebanon here in Australia and also in Lebanon when we can, and get more of these players exposed at the top level, but also give them the opportunity to play for a livelihood, a contract in the NRL. I think there's so many young Lebanese heritage players playing in the junior leagues. We still got to do some work about getting more of those players with NRL contracts. So that will be a goal between now and the next World Cup in 25.
Michael, do you think you've got enough NRL standard players to make an impact in this tournament?
We have players, yeah, there's no doubt about that. If you look at, there's probably 6, 7 players that are playing at the top level, maybe another 4 or 5 who are playing on the fringe, who aren't too far away. And then one of the things that Lebanon's been very good at in not just World Cups and all the test matches they've played in Rugby League is that they're amateur players who are working during the week and then turning up to play, and not really in regular programs. They're able to get up for those 4 or 5 games. There'd be a lot of guys who were high quality players that made decisions to follow a career, do a trade, maybe they didn't get the opportunities to get full-time contracts, but they're still quality players, and they're working jobs like all of the normal folks out there, but they've still got that game in them that they can play, and we only need 6 games in a World Cup, to get up for. So they showed that in the last World Cup, and I'm sure we'll show it again in this one.
Well, if results go your way, you could be coaching one test for one country one day and another in another sport a day or so later.
Well, mate, I think my experience from World Cups will tell me that in rugby would tell me that the focus has to be one game at a time, and I know that's very cliched, but you got to start at the very start when it comes to these things. And the first game will be against New Zealand, and obviously everyone will be expecting them to use us as a practice run on their way towards probably a final. They've got a great team, so we've got to understand that every opportunity on the field will be one that we can take with the right attitude and the right strategy and the right energy that comes to the game, So start there. If we get to a point where those 2 weeks meet further down the road, that will be pretty awesome. So I think a quarter final Friday, and then Argentina are playing England on the Sunday at Twickenham. So yeah, I could maybe organise the week so I go down to London, back up to Manchester, one day on, day off, see how it rolls. But look, that's going to be a very good problem to have if we have it.
Michael, if your old mate Eddie Jones wants to come to Lebanon training, will he be welcome there?
But I might invite him actually. We could end up being a dynamic. He's always wanted to coach in league, so he says. So we could do a bit of dynamic duo that weekend, that week, and he could turn the English people on him a little bit more. But I think he's obviously another guy who's been huge into rugby league and loves it growing up in the local area as a South fan as well. So I'm sure he'll be at a few of the games, no doubt.
You've been to 2 World Cups in rugby union. You now get the opportunity to do it in another sport. Now, look, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think, there'll be certain experiences from the Rugby Union World Cup that I'll be able to use, the Rugby Union World Cups I've been in that I'll be able to use. And then just from, I suppose, the event and the occasion, and the Rugby League World Cup is getting bigger every year. Every time it's played. More important, they've gone to the pool system now, which is more mimicking what you'd find in the Rugby Union World Cup as opposed to the system as the teams have improved across the board. And it's becoming a bigger and bigger event. And I think that this one here, and considering the extra year's wait, some of the quality of some of the teams that are going to be on show, and the quality of some of the players with a league system that you can play second tier if you have heritage from that country. Some of the players that could be playing, if they're not picked for either Australia, New Zealand or England, who could be playing for other countries, will make it a really interesting tournament. So I know that experience in rugby will help me, and then I have to adjust to understand the intricacies of the game at the top level. It's one thing knowing about the game, and I've got that experience now in rugby league to have a knowledge of the basics, but you're playing at the absolute elite level here, and you want to do your best. So I've got to really acclimatise myself to what will be important on match day in these types of games.
Check, I've heard that rugby league was central to your early success with Leinster. Is it true that you had the Irish boys watching clips of the likes of Joey Johns for an attack?
Yeah, definitely. I think watching those guys play and, being sort of contemporary with that era of really great players, albeit in a different code, it really, I remember even Felipe Contempomi, who's coaching with me in Argentina right now, we gave him a VHS of, I think, 2004 highlights NRL, just so that they get a look at a different way of playing the game. And we've had a heavy influence of league, both in attack and defence over the years. I've now got David Kidwell coaching with Argentina, who's quite a well-established rugby league coach. The crossover is becoming more regular and the influences are more consistent across the game. If you look at it, we're looking for quick ball at rucks in rugby union, and in the league we're looking for quick balls to play the balls, so that we can get our attack going. So there is a lot of similarities, as long as you can understand where it's nuanced and you can take some of the qualities from one game to the other to a certain point, or even adapt them so that they fit into the game themselves. And that's been a real advantage to me, having had the knowledge of those two games in my head, and even more recently coaching in both codes as well.
As opposed to rugby union, this World Cup is unique, with wheelchair athletes and women all at the one World Cup.
Well, it's good forward thinking, you know what I mean? The game is about having a diverse group of people playing it, watching it, right, being involved, all participation across the board. And I think that, the women's game is very enjoyable here in Australia that I've watched. In fact, there was, in the COVID year, we watched a lot of the rugby union girls go over and play in the NRL tournament here, and that was excellent standard. And it's, in its own right, a really valued product, if you ask me, a really valued tournament to go on and play. And I haven't seen a whole lot of the wheelchair. I've seen the wheelchair rugby, and it's nasty. It's aggressive, and they're playing some, it's different, but the same values to the game of rugby in that instance and in rugby league and this one apply, and that's being part of a team and doing your best to beat the other team that's in front of you according to the tactics that apply in your game. And they're different tactics, but they're also very entertaining. So it's great that all of those competitions will be running contemporarily at the World Cup. We'll get to see some of them ourselves.
And what would you say to the fans of other codes who might be thinking of getting along to the Rugby League World Cup?
Well, I'd say enjoy the tournament, but based off, especially if one of your teams is playing, you know, I mean, it's a World Cup. And at the end of the day, there is no bigger spectacle for your sport. It doesn't matter how you spin it. There's not many people who can go out there and say they're world champions in a discipline. And so all the teams will be doing their absolute best to get to the top. And if you go and either go there and watch the games or go there or watch the games on TV, you'll get that atmosphere of where, let's say you're English and you'll come in and watch Lebanon and Jamaica. You're going to get a feel of the culture, the flavour of those countries in a sport that's the consistent theme between, you know, English people, Jamaican people, Lebanese people, Italian people. And I'm seeing that myself now, coaching Argentina in rugby, a totally different culture that's being, you know, connected by the one sport. And I think that people who go to the games and watch the games where different countries that aren't their own are playing can enjoy the game for a different reason at a World Cup. And there's a real festival atmosphere, and I'm sure it's going to be. I can't wait to be involved. Never been to a Rugby League World Cup, and let alone participated in one. So this is a great opportunity to experience it and get the flavour of it for now and for the future.
Michael Cheika, thank you for joining James, Graham and I.
Thanks, boys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, he sounds pumped, doesn't he? The man has a lot on his plate, but how good is it to have a person of that calibre involved in the Rugby League World Cup?
James, it just shows people want to be there. I mean, to be missing test matches, to be involved, of another code to be involved is unbelievable.
It speaks volumes to the importance of this Rugby League World Cup. It really, really does.
Thanks for joining us. And folks, if you want to be like some of the top coaches in the world who are desperate to get there, you get your tickets and get to the Rugby League World Cup.